If you have ever loved someone who comes close, opens up, looks right into your soul, and then suddenly turns cold like the door of their heart just slammed shut, then stay with me, because this may change how you see everything. Most people lose an avoidant in the exact moment they try hardest to keep them. They text more, ask more, push more, love louder, and somehow the distance grows. That is the trap. The more pressure they feel, the faster they disappear inside themselves. But here is what almost nobody tells you. The answer is not to play games, not to become cold, not to pretend you do not care. The real shift is much deeper than that. It is learning how to make love feel calm instead of heavy, safe instead of urgent, steady instead of demanding. And when that happens, something surprising begins to unfold. The person who kept pulling away starts leaning in without being forced. The one who feared closeness starts staying longer. The one who always needed space starts choosing connection on their own. Listen carefully, because what comes next is where most people either lose the bond or transform it completely. If you understand this, you will stop chasing love and start becoming the kind of presence that love does not want to leave. When you are dealing with an avoidant person, one of the biggest mistakes is thinking love grows through intensity. Most people believe more reassurance, more emotional talks, more effort, and more urgency will finally make the bond deeper. But for an avoidant, those things often feel like emotional weight. What feels like love to you can feel like pressure to them, and pressure is the very thing that makes them shut down, pull back, or go quiet. What they are truly responding to is emotional safety, not cold distance, not indifference, real safety, the kind that lets them stay close without feeling swallowed by someone else's fear, need, or panic. Emotional safety means you can tell the truth about how you feel without demanding an answer on the spot. It means your emotions are real, but they are not crashing into them like a wave they have to survive. You are not asking them to fix your pain, carry your anxiety, or prove their love every 5 minutes. You are showing them your heart without making your heart their full-time job. That difference matters more than most people understand. It feels unfamiliar to them, and that is exactly why it gets their attention. They are used to people reacting fast when distance appears. They expect blame, they expect drama, they expect emotional chasing. So when you stay calm, open, and grounded instead, their nervous system pauses, their guard softens, they stop preparing for impact, and in that quiet opening, real connection has a chance to breathe. This does not mean you become silent, passive, or fake. It does not mean you hide your needs just to keep peace. It means you change the way you bring your truth into the room. Timing matters, tone matters, energy matters. There is a huge difference between saying, "Why are you acting like this? What is wrong with you?" and saying, "I feel the distance, and I care about this connection, so I wanted to be honest about that." One creates pressure, the other creates space. One makes them feel cornered, the other lets them stay present without feeling trapped, and that is the secret most people miss. An avoidant person usually moves closer when closeness stops feeling like a threat to their freedom. When they feel emotionally safe with you, your presence starts to mean peace instead of pressure. You become the person they do not have to perform for, the one they do not have to defend themselves against, the one who does not force emotional speed they cannot handle. Over time, this changes the whole rhythm of the connection. They begin to share more without being dragged into it. They stay longer in conversations. They reach out more naturally, not because they were convinced, not because they were guilted, because they want to. That is how deeper love forms here, not through force, through relief, not through intensity, through steadiness. And if you stay to the end, you will see why this one shift can quietly change every part of the relationship. Another thing that pulls an avoidant closer is true independence. Not fake independence used as a trick, not silence designed to make them jealous. Real independence, the kind that exists whether they notice it or not. Avoidant people are extremely sensitive to emotional dependence. The moment they feel that someone's identity, peace, or whole sense of worth is hanging on them, they begin to step back. Not always because they do not care, often because it feels like too much responsibility. It feels like if they move the wrong way, they will break something inside you, and that pressure makes closeness feel dangerous. Real independence removes that fear. It shows up in your daily life. You have your own routine, your own focus, your own goals, your own friendships, your own joy. Their distance does not stop your life. Their silence does not erase your self-respect. You do not sit there frozen, waiting for one text to decide your mood. You stay connected to yourself. That energy is powerful. Avoidant people respect autonomy because they need it themselves. When they see someone who is emotionally grounded, self-led, and still open to love, it builds deep respect. And for many avoidant people, respect is the bridge that leads to love. You stop looking like someone who might collapse if they need space. You start looking like someone who chooses them without depending on them for survival. That difference is magnetic. It creates curiosity. It makes them wonder about you. It makes your energy feel calm, rare, and safe. Instead of feeling like a duty, the connection starts to feel like a free choice. And choice is where their heart begins to open. What is interesting is that healthy independence does not push them away. It often pulls them in. When you stop over-focusing on them, they start feeling your absence in a different way, not as punishment, not as strategy, just as the natural result of you having a full life. That changes everything. Their defenses do not rise because your space does not feel aggressive. It feels normal, and because it feels normal, it creates room for interest instead of resistance. They may start checking in more, reaching out sooner, asking questions they did not ask before, not because you manipulated them, but because the connection now feels balanced. There is no emotional crowding, no silent demand, just two people with their own center choosing whether to meet in the middle. For an avoidant person, that balance is deeply calming. They can come closer without feeling consumed. They can stay present without feeling trapped. And the strongest part of all this is that when you are truly independent, you stop trying to control the outcome. You stop reading every small signal like it is life or death. You stop overperforming just to earn softness from them. You show up as yourself, clear, calm, self-respecting. That quiet confidence is deeply attractive because it carries no hidden pressure. It says, I care, but I do not disappear inside this. And that message can do more than endless emotional effort ever could. Stay with this point, because many people think love is proven by how much you chase. In reality, some of the strongest love is shown by how fully you stay rooted in yourself while your heart remains open. Calm consistency is another thing that matters more than grand gestures. Avoidant people are always scanning for emotional instability, even when everything looks fine on the outside. Their body often expects that closeness will eventually turn into chaos, blame, overwhelm, or loss of freedom. That is why sudden mood swings, panic texts, emotional explosions, ultimatums, or sharp reactions to small changes can hit them harder than you think. To them, those moments are not just moments. They feel like proof that closeness is dangerous. But calm consistency feels different. It feels grounding. It tells their nervous system that the relationship is not a storm waiting to happen, and grounding is what makes them stay. This does not mean you become emotionless. It does not mean you never speak up. It means your emotional state is not completely controlled by what they do in one moment. You do not swing wildly between warmth and distance every time they shift. You do not lose all steadiness when you feel unsure. You stay composed. You feel what you feel, but you do not turn every feeling into an emergency. For someone who has learned to fear emotional mess, this kind of stability is rare. It challenges their old belief that relationships always become chaotic when people get too close. It shows them that someone can be disappointed without becoming cruel, honest without becoming dramatic, and vulnerable without becoming overwhelming. That is a different experience of love, a healing one, a safer one, and because it feels safer, it becomes harder for them to run from it. Think about how this looks in real life. They take longer than usual to answer. They seem a little distant. They go quiet for a day. A reactive response assumes rejection at once. It accuses, pushes, demands clarity now. But a calm response leaves room. It notices the shift without turning it into a war. It might sound like, I notice some distance. I hope you are okay. I'm here when you want to talk. That kind of message has strength in it. It is open, but not desperate, honest, but not heavy. It tells them you are aware without making them feel hunted. Over time, that steadiness becomes something they trust. You become the person who does not create fire every time the rhythm changes. The one who does not collapse when things slow down. the one who does not force them to manage your inner world. And that is deeply attractive to an avoidant person because it lowers the emotional cost of staying connected. The more your presence feels like peace, the more they begin to associate you with safety rather than obligation. That is when they often start opening little by little. They stay longer in conversations, they explain more, they show up with more effort, not because you pushed, because your consistency gave them room to choose. And that choice matters. Always remember this. People open the deepest when they feel safe enough to do it on their own terms. That is especially true here. The next part is crucial because it explains why giving space the right way can change the entire emotional dynamic. For an avoidant person, distance has often been their safest tool. When feelings get too intense, when connection starts to feel heavy, when expectations seem to rise, stepping back is how they regulate themselves. Most people react to this by chasing harder or punishing the distance. They call more, push for answers, go cold to teach a lesson, use silence as a weapon. But those reactions usually strengthen the exact fear already living inside the avoidant. The fear that closeness will cost them freedom and flood them with emotional pressure. Allowing space without chasing or punishing interrupts that whole cycle. When you give space calmly, you send a message many avoidant people have rarely received. The message is simple: you are free and I am still stable. That is powerful. You are not disappearing to create panic. You are not crowding them to calm your own fear. You remain steady. And when there is no drama attached to the distance, something unexpected happens. The distance stops working the way it used to. It was supposed to bring relief. But if there is no emotional storm on the other side, then the old pattern begins to lose power. Chasing creates pressure. Punishment creates resistance. Calm space creates reflection. It lets them feel the connection without the usual fear around it. And this is where many people see the first real shift. The avoidant starts missing not just your presence, but the emotional ease they feel with you. That ease becomes difficult to replace, and when someone starts missing peace, they often come back differently. Letting the connection breathe does not mean abandoning yourself. It means you do not panic just because space appears. You do not interrogate them the second they return. You do not demand a long explanation for every moment of distance. You do not make them pay emotionally for needing room. Instead, you stay grounded in your own life. You keep your standards. You keep your peace. And because you do, your presence starts to feel non-invasive, warm, and safe. That is when an avoidant person may begin coming back sooner, reaching out more often, staying present longer. Their internal alarm system starts to quiet down because the relationship is no longer tied to guilt, shame, or emotional punishment. Slowly, closeness stops feeling like a trap. It starts feeling like a choice. And choice is what makes love sustainable here. This point is easy to misunderstand, so listen carefully. Giving space is not the same as accepting crumbs forever. It is not the same as lowering your worth. You can allow space while still knowing what works for you and what does not. You can be open without becoming available for anything. That is the balance. No chasing, no controlling, no punishing, just clarity, steadiness, and self-respect. And when fear starts leaving the connection, deeper feelings can finally grow in its place. Many people never see that part because they stay locked in the old push-pull. But if you break the pattern, you create room for a different kind of love, a slower love, a cleaner love, a love that is chosen, not dragged into existence. This is why boundaries matter so much. A lot of people think boundaries will scare an avoidant away, but often the opposite is true. What unsettles them is not healthy boundaries, it is the absence of them. When someone has no clear limits, no standards, and no emotional structure, the avoidant starts feeling an unspoken pressure to manage the whole emotional balance of the relationship, and that is exactly what makes them want to run. Clear boundaries communicate self-respect. They say, I know what works for me, I know what does not. I do not need to force you, but I will honor myself. That feels solid, grounded, predictable, and predictability is calming for someone who fears emotional chaos. Healthy boundaries are not dramatic speeches or hidden threats. They are simple and steady. For example, instead of saying, if you do not text me more, I am done, a grounded boundary sounds like, I value consistency, so when communication becomes too irregular, I naturally step back and focus elsewhere. There is no blame in that, no pressure, just truth, and truth without emotional force is easier for an avoidant to hear. At first, they may test boundaries out of habit. They may assume you will bend, over-explain, or abandon your standards just to keep the bond alive. But when your boundary stays calm and consistent, something changes. Respect grows. And respect is a huge part of how love deepens with an avoidant person. Without respect, closeness feels unstable. With respect, closeness starts to feel safe. Boundaries also protect you from becoming reactive. They stop you from overextending until resentment quietly builds. They remove the hidden expectation that you will accept inconsistency forever. They keep the dynamic balanced. Instead of you constantly chasing reassurance, the avoidant is left with space to decide whether they want to rise and meet you at your level. And because that choice stays in their hands, it does not trigger the same fear of being controlled. That part is important. They do not move closer because they are cornered. They move closer because they can feel the difference between pressure and standards. One suffocates them, the other earns their respect. Over time, your boundaries teach them how to treat you, not through punishment, through pattern, through calm repetition, through the energy of someone who values themselves enough not to over-negotiate their peace. That kind of self-respect stands out. It makes you someone they admire, not just someone they feel responsible for, and admiration changes the emotional tone of the whole connection. It adds depth, it adds gravity, it gives the relationship something stronger than chemistry alone. If you are still here, this is where the deeper lesson becomes clear. Love that lasts is not built on who can feel the most. It is built on who can stay honest, calm, and aligned without losing themselves. That is what gives the connection a spine. And now we get to another major shift, one that quietly ruins many bonds, without people even noticing it at first: overgiving. One of the fastest ways to overwhelm an avoidant person is by giving too much, too fast, for too long. Not because kindness is wrong, not because affection is bad, but because overgiving often carries an invisible emotional price. Even if you never say it out loud, too much effort can begin to feel like a silent request for closeness, certainty, commitment, or emotional return. Avoidant people feel that pressure quickly. Balanced emotional openness draws them in. Overgiving pushes them back. Emotional availability means you are warm, real, and expressive without disappearing inside the relationship. You can care deeply without flooding the space. You can show love without making love feel heavy. You can offer support without trying to earn security through constant giving. That keeps the connection light enough for them to stay present. Overgiving usually looks like always being available, always understanding, always reassuring, always adjusting, always carrying the emotional tone for both people. At first it may look loving, but slowly it creates imbalance. The avoidant starts to feel that your emotional center is leaning too much on them, even if you never mean for that to happen. And once they feel responsible for your stability, they often retreat. Balanced availability removes that pressure. You let them come toward you too. You let them invest. You let them show interest at their own pace instead of doing all the emotional work for both sides. That space is important because closeness feels safer when it is earned, not extracted. And for an avoidant, earned closeness often opens the door to deeper attachment. This also means you stop over-explaining your feelings and over-justifying every need. You say what is true in a simple, calm way, and then you let it land. You do not chase the perfect response. You do not push to make them understand faster than they can. You trust that the right response will come from alignment, not pressure. That confidence is powerful. It shows that you are connected, but not dependent, warm, but not overwhelming, loving, but not self-sacrificing. And that mix is rare. It lets an avoidant person experience closeness without feeling like they are losing themselves inside someone else's emotional hunger. Over time, they start to feel something different around you. They feel rest instead of tension, interest instead of duty, desire instead of defense. That is where love starts deepening quietly, not in the loud moments, in the clean ones, in the moments where nobody is forcing anything, but both people can feel the bond growing. Sometimes the deepest shift is not visible at first. It is in the way they linger a little longer, share a little more, ask one extra question. Reach out first, stay softer than usual. Those small moments matter. They are often the early signs that safety is replacing fear. And when fear begins to loosen its grip, an avoidant person can finally start meeting you in the middle instead of always protecting the exit. Keep watching this pattern closely because the final shift ties all of it together in a way most people never fully see. The deepest truth is this: love with an avoidant person does not grow through force. It does not grow through emotional chasing, endless proving, or trying to pull more feeling out of them than they are ready to give. It grows through safety, balance, and self-respect. The moment you stop trying to make them love you more and start becoming someone who feels peaceful to love, the whole energy changes. They do not fall deeper because they were convinced. They fall deeper because being with you starts to feel easier than being without you. That is the shift. Emotional safety removes fear. Independence removes pressure. Calm consistency builds trust. Allowing space without punishment removes resistance. Boundaries create respect. Balanced openness creates desire. None of these are tricks. None of these are games. They are changes in how you show up. More grounded, more secure, more self-led. And here is the part